Hello and welcome to GNN, a weekly Fallout-themed podcast brought to you by Shoddycast, makers of Hidden History and Fallout Lore The Storyteller. I'm your host, Charles Battersby, and with me is my co-host,
Austin Horrigan.
Now, later in the episode, we're going to have some special guests. We have Kankennon, the voice of the Storyteller in the Fallout Lore series, as well as Carson, who's the voice of Ranger Helen Tanner in the Storyteller series. But first, we're going to talk about some recent Fallout news. We were hoping for a glut of new information to come out with PAX Prime, but that didn't happen, but there's a couple of neat little tidbits that did come out. So first, goodoldgames.com, GOG.com, they have some of the older Elder Scrolls available for download, and they've also brought back the Fallout stable to their website, which was down from their website for a little while. Austin, what's new with you in terms of Fallout stuff?
Well, I did see today that there was that Bethesda actually recently released the level that you will have to reach. It's not quite a level cap, I don't believe, but it's the level that you would have to reach in order to acquire a maxed out character. And
this is all 270 perks and different levels of the perks?
Yes, and you have to get to level 275 in order to unlock every single perk and have the maxiest of characters. And if the leveling feels at all like it did in the original game, it's probably going to take it's going to take me a little while. I'm sure there's someone out there who will do it pretty quickly, but I know... it always takes me a while to reach the level 50 or something that is the level cap in New Vegas. I was always sad when I reached the level cap. It felt like no matter what I was doing, no matter what it didn't matter what it was, the game just felt over. Because I didn't realize how much I lived for that ka-ching sound every time I got experience points and killed someone. And so when that stopped happening, I got really, really sad.
Yeah, one of the traits that you could take in New Vegas limited your experience points, so you would get a 10% experience point penalty, but bonus skills. So I loved taking that one just because it extended that period of leveling up for you. And it more than paid for itself in the long run. Okay, so we have an interview coming up later in the show, but for now we're going to start a new segment on GNN called Ask a Lore Nut, where we're going to address little bits that aren't necessarily big enough to make an entire episode of The Storyteller out of, and maybe they're a little too elaborate for a hidden history. So Ask a Lore Nut. And this week, William Morn on Twitter, @WilliamMorn with an E on the end, says... has there ever been an ideological split within the Enclave? Austin, tell us about this.
So I'm just going to give a really, really brief history of the Enclave, just to kind of set the stage here. The Enclave are descendants of important politicians and some corporate heads. I think they kind of hint that Vault Tech people were also part of it, but it's just a hodgepodge of really important, the elite folk of the United States before the war.
The self-described elite.
Yeah, well, whom sequestered themselves away on the Poseidon oil rig out in the which one's on the Pacific?
Pacific, yes.
I know where the oceans are. And so they they bunker down and waited for radiation levels to come down. They came around Fallout 2 times, the back when times in Fallout 2, and did evil, destroy the wastelandy things. They got their butts kicked, which you will probably hear told on the in more detail in the lore series, the Storyteller series, because that seems to be the story that's getting told right now.
Upcoming episodes that have just been written.
Ooh.
At the time that you're hearing this.
So they got their butts kicked by the Chosen One, and they headed east to the Capital Wasteland under the leadership... Well, they were brought there by a signal from John Henry Eden, who is a Zax computer, which is a really elaborate AI that has a giant room all of its own in order to run on tapes, which is the weirdest idea ever. I love that scene. This is a bit of a derail, but I love that scene from was a Winter Soldier where he had an AI. His AI was stored on a bunch of old tape reels, and I was like, "Oh, look, it's John Henry Eden."
And in Fallout 2, there are moments where you can click on the computers to get a description of them, and they'll say, it's the state of the art with 64K RAM.
So John Henry Eden wanted to eliminate all mutation in the Capital Wasteland using a modified version of the Force Evolutionary Virus, and basically that you can decide whether or not to help him as the lone wanderer, and then there was Augustus Autumn, who is the descendant of the folk of the guy who led the Enclave East. He wants to just take control of Project Purity, and use it as a kind of an institution, as basically a chip to bargain with and to levy control over the Capital Wasteland using clean water. I think that's most of the the kind of like Cliff Notes version. And so the question is whether or not there's ever been an ideological split. And Charles knows a lot more about the early Enclave because he's played the first 2 Fallout games in great detail. I know a lot more. We're probably more on the same level with Fallout 3. And I would say that there is actually an ideological split that happens in Fallout 3. There's the moment where John Henry Eden wants to use Project Purity as a method of purifying the wasteland due to some sort of weird coding error in his mainframe, and then Autumn actually rebels against him and goes against his wishes in Fallout 3, and then tries to take Project Purity just to kind of use it as something that gives the Enclave authority. Other than that, I'm not sure if there's been any actual ideological split or splinter factions, but I think that's kind of... do you know anything about that, Charles?
Yes, in Fallout 2, as the player reaches the later levels, they start meeting former Enclave operatives. So in the NCR, there's Doc Henry. So those of you who haven't played the first 2 games but have played New Vegas, if you think about Jacobstown, there's the old doctor, Doc Henry, that's trying to cure the super mutants, and he helps you with Rex the Cyberdog. That guy was actually a young man in Fallout 2. And back then, he was a former Enclave who was still a mad scientist, just not mad enough to belong to the Enclave. I won't spoil what he does in Fallout 2, but he does give you an experimental medication for you to do something with, and the results are things that I don't want to spoil it, but it's a fun little mini mission to go on. So when you reach it, you'll know what I'm talking about. You'll know it when it happens. You also later on meet a former Enclave shipping captain who is now the captain of the ship that you use at the very end of Fallout 2, and he's ex-Enclave as well.
So what there doesn't seem to be much of, I've noticed, there seems to be a lot of defectors. There's not, I mean, Autumn is the closest to like there being like an actual splinter faction, but like if you really look at what happens in Fallout 3, really he's the Enclave. Like, cause I mean, he says, "Hey guys, to hell with John Henry Eden, screw him, do what I say," and all the people listen to him. They don't, I mean, the only thing John Henry Eden has is robots, so there's not, they're remarkably single-minded. Well, now, actually,
in New Vegas, there are implications of another faction of the Enclave. During Ed E's mission, you'll see first Eddie has a Illinois state license plate bolted onto his frame. And also some of the audio tapes that he has are from the Enclave, and there appears to be an Enclave faction in Illinois somewhere. And so that's probably something that was intended to be done in a later game. And so when they started hinting about that in New Vegas, maybe they already had ideas that they wanted to do a Midwestern game set in Chicago or somewhere in the middle of the country. So that's a hint that they've put in that it might end up being in Fallout 4, or it might be something that they just pocketed in the hopes that someday Obsidian will do, Fallout 5 or Fallout 4.5 and be able to capitalize on that idea.
So if you'd like us to keep having a podcast, we can't really talk about Fallout 4 news because it comes in a slow trickle. So if you have any other questions for us lore nuts, you should ask them in the comments below or ask us on Twitter, and we will be happy to talk out of our butts about whatever you may ask when it comes to the Fallout universe.
Wow, that's very enticing. We'll talk out of our butts about whatever when it's a slow news day.
Charles is a very smart butt, though.
Thank you. And speaking of smart butts, let's do a segment of artsy smartsy stuff. Here's a movie from 1992 that I cannot prove that this inspired the Fallout developers, but there's so many coincidences, and it times so well that it must have influenced the early development of the Fallout games and had some influences on Fallout 3. So, it's called Mindwarp. It was released in 1992, and it stars Bruce Campbell. So now, the premise behind this is the main character, played by Marta Martin, is a woman that's raised in an underground vault-like society where everyone is plugged into a VR system, which is kind of like a couple of the vaults from Fallout. And she decides that she wants to leave the vault and go out and see what the wasteland is like. And there she discovers a society of wasteland mutants led by a cunning master with an evil plan. And she also meets Bruce Campbell, who's a wasteland warrior that's surviving, out in the wilds. And the themes that coincide with the Fallout games are, manyfold. The whole subterranean mutants and the Master with his cunning plan, and his plan is built around pure strain humans that are free of any genetic decay, like in the first Fallout game, and which is also a subplot in Fallout 2. And also, it was released in 1992. It starred Bruce Campbell, who I'm sure you all know from the Army of Darkness series. So it's the kind of movie that I can easily imagine the young Fallout developers 5 years before the game came out. I can imagine these young guys sitting around watching Bruce Campbell movies on videotape. And that this must have been the kind of thing that they would have watched and enjoyed and influenced them in some degree. And now, I do need to warn viewers that Mindwarp isn't a great movie. In fact, it's arguably not even a good movie. It was released straight to video. It was made by Fangoria's production company, or it was released by Fangoria's production company. So a lot of the science fiction elements take a back seat to horror elements with splatter effects and latex. And but if you are a big horror fan, it does not only have Bruce Campbell, but it also has the guy that played the Tall Man in the Phantasm series. So if you're a fan of the old Phantasm movies, then this is something you'd want to catch as well. I'm going to blow some of the plot twists. That we find out that parts of this movie are actually a virtual reality representation, that it's like a plot twist. There's several plot twists, and some of them revolve around that, one character discovers it's all a VR simulator, and they cheat on this from a narrative perspective, because parts of this character's VR simulation are from the point of view of other characters. So it's like having, a character wake up and, it was all a dream, but my dream had a subplot featuring some other people who did stuff that I never even saw. And so, if you are going to make a movie where, the revelation as well, it was a hallucination or something, then you at least have to make sure the hallucination is all told from the perspective of the person having the hallucination, and not the villain sitting around, talking about their evil plan, unbeknownst to the person who's witnessing this VR simulation.
That would just make me feel guilty for waking up from the VR simulation. It's like, yeah, you just obliterated 15 sentient beings. It's fine. Just for your little adventure out in the wasteland.
Mindwarp is something you might want to watch just out of historical curiosity to see if, you actually do agree that this was an influencer on the early Fallout games. And next week, by all means, watch Zardoz. I double dare you, and we will talk about it next week. And now we have a couple of special guests. For those of you who watch The Storyteller every Friday here on Shoddycast, you'll recognize both of their voices. Austin, please introduce our lovely guests.
We have with us Kankennon, the voice of the storyteller, and Carson, the voice of Helen Tanner. Thank you for joining us.
President accounted for, sir. Gotta get into character.
Yeah, I was listening to some of your samples online, Karen, and you have...
I know, I noticed you were trolling my website.
So you do some very wholesome sounding, Hershey's Shake Shack commercials, which are nothing at all like Helen Tanner.
It's the Hershey's Shake Shop Express, yeah. Yeah, I mean, Charles, you got to have a wide range to compete in this industry. So, yeah, you just do what you got to do.
And Jason, I was actually noticing you have a new sample where you're talking about termites, and I could swear you're doing the storyteller voice, doing like a lore series about how termites find your house. And
that's another insect for another day.
So we had Jason on about 2 months ago, and at that point, we had not yet introduced the character of Junior or the Luddites, and maybe we should, surprise the audience by letting them know just how many characters on the show Jason does. Jason, who on the show have you done?
Oh, goodness. Well, Junior was a surprise. I thought Junior was going to be like a little one-shot and bye character. So the thing about Junior, I did it like just him on a late Friday night because I was told, he's just going to be this old, grizzled, kind of almost prospector type of guy that's really, haggard and worn. And I'm all like, okay, I'm going to screw up my voice on a Friday night. Sure, I can have it heal over the weekend. And so I really, really roughed it up and gave it some age, and then found out soon afterwards that, oh yeah, Junior's a recurring character. We're going to see him a lot. And I'm all like, oh no, I could have made it a lot easier on myself so I could record easily during the week Junior's character, because he hurts. Even the kind of slightly subdued version that I've got for him now, that's a little different if you notice from the very first time we see Junior. My voice said I can't maintain that particular Junior, so maybe that Junior hadn't talked to anybody in a long time, which is why he was a little rough.
I need a drink.
Yeah. So the Junior you're hearing now is only after a little bit of wear and tear that I still save for the very last thing I record at night. I saved that particular Junior for still, because he does a lot of damage to me.
And you're also more than one Luddite, I believe.
Oh, yeah. Well, so I guess all the Luddites you've heard so far have been me. Have been
you get paid per Luddite?
The Luddite voice is my favorite. The King Lud. It's just like this weird, like faux, like it's like someone decided to do Robin Hood in like a community college play somewhere. It's my favorite.
I feel like that the Luddites were probably tried to do their voices and act so they're regular. They would have been bored probably without the accent. They said, no, we've got to add this cheesy accent to make ourselves sound more serious.
Well, that was actually the idea that I had when writing it, that, they're speaking in this generic, old-timey, pre-industrial revolution accent, which is what people in the 23rd century think that people in the 18th century might have sounded like. All right, so Karen, when you do Ranger Tanner, how is her voice different from like your normal voice?
She's really not that much different. It's just her persona. She's like a 180 from who I am, as far as don't take any crap from anybody. That kind of a feeling. And I don't know. Are you familiar with the movie Wreck-It Ralph?
Yes.
Yes, with Jane Lynch as Calhoun.
Uh-huh.
That's kind of where I got the inspiration when I auditioned in the first place. But I realized that this was a little bit more serious than that. But, I kind of got that, here we go, let's rock and roll, let's go and get it done. So she's just kind of like that. And I love playing her because, like I said, she's so different from my real life. It's great fantasy to come into my room and look at the script and kind of feel what she's feeling or where we're going or what adventure we're on, and trying to figure out the outcome or who's doing what, and it's a lot of fun for me.
Yeah, there's a script, I don't know if they've shown it to you yet, where she has like a little softer moment and narrates an episode.
Oh, yeah.
So Yeah, I guess they haven't shown you that script yet, but we wrote it.
No. Well, we can't give it too much away now, Charles, can we? Gotta keep a little hush-hush.
So, Karen, you're not Helen in real life. So would you, if the apocalypse happened tomorrow and you were very hungry, would you eat a dog if you had to?
Would I eat a dog if I had to, and it was just a dog? That'd be very difficult. That would be very difficult. So in a way, Helen and I are, kind of on the same keel, but I guess I might, if you had nothing else. But I do watch the survival shows. So, I know about certain other little things I can do to survive, rather than eat the dog. But
would you eat a person?
It's a maybe. It's a strong. Ooh. Let's see. I would eat a No.
You thought about it for a second.
I thought about it, but I don't think so. No, I think I'd rather just, fade away.
Jason was disturbingly silent in our discussion of cannibalism and dog eating.
It's worse for me because I'm actually a vegetarian, so that's even harder. That's a hard question for me. I would probably wither away. I got enough meat on my bones as it is that I could probably outlast a lot of others as it was, and then I can scavenge for non-radioactive carrots or whatever out of the garden. Considering I'm in California and we don't have water enough to grow anything anyway, I'm during an apocalypse I'd be pretty hard pressed to survive on anything other than canned beans and
But then there's that moment you can't find the can opener. What are you going to do? I have a question about Junior. Maybe this is for Charles, though. But how do we... what does this car run on? How do we fuel it?
Oh, actually, there was a cut scene where I had them scavenging for energy cells.
Ah, okay.
And so for those of you that, that are listening that are wondering the exact same thing, the highwaymen in Fallout 2 would run on energy cells and I think microfusion cells. So your character would have to scrounge for those and then recharge the car every now and then. So in our little storyline, I just imagine that in between adventures, they stop and scrounge for more little energy cells and then refuel the car in scenes that we don't necessarily see. But there may be an episode that comes up where they run out of power and then have to go scavenge for it.
Oh, okay.
So, Karen, what was the last video game that you played?
Well, this is really cool. On vacation this summer, we went down to Fayetteville, Arkansas. Went to this place called the Retrocade, and it was like the old school stuff. And they had hundreds of video games from like the 80s. And you go in and you put down $5 and you can play as long as you want all day long. And
that's a sweet deal.
The last one that I did, it was great. I played Wreck-It Ralph, I played Frogger, I got to play Donkey Kong and Pac-Man, and it was so much fun. So, yeah, I'm kicking it old school.
I knew all the regular old Nintendo games, like your Donkey Kongs and stuff like that, but I never heard of a Fix-It Felix game prior to the movie. So there really was, they didn't make it based on the movie, you're saying this is
No, it's an old game. I tell you what, I will email you a picture. I've got a picture of my kids playing it, so I'll send it to you.
All right, well, thank you both for coming on the show.
Hey,
well, thanks for having us.
Yeah.
Lots of fun. You let us know when you want to do this again.
All right, so we'd love to have you guys back when season 3 wraps up in the near future.
You got it. You know how to get me.
We'll be there.
All right, and now it's time for some viewer questions, some perfectly reasonable speculations, and some wildly irresponsible speculations. So first up, perfectly reasonable speculation from Titleous Morse on Twitter, @TitleousMorse. The protagonist will carry a unique baseball bat named the Big Papi, which is signed by the 2077 world champion Boston Red Sox. So this is a reference to the Green Monster, the Red Sox mascot. All right, so I'm putting this under perfectly reasonable speculations because I think that since it's set in Boston, there's going to be a lot of Boston-related humor, and I think there's going to be some kind of in-game representation of the Red Sox. Maybe, they won't be able to actually license the use of the term Red Sox or any of the logos of the Red Sox, but I think there's definitely going to be Boston sporting-related references, including something kind of like the Red Sox. And as a New Yorker, I'm hoping to see a reference to the fact that Boston sport fans hate New Yorkers. So I'm hoping to hear something along the lines of Mets suck or Yankees suck. So Austin, what do you think?
I hope we have something kind of like the Kings where like there was some sort of thing where they hit bats with balls here, but we can't find any names and references. All the names were worn out because of course they couldn't mention Elvis directly in Fallout New Vegas because I believe there were some sort of they were concerned about the legality of that. I know there's definitely gonna be there has to be direct references at least to the Red Sox because I'm pretty certain that they've mentioned a place called Diamond City, which is going to be some sort of fortified settlement within the baseball diamond. I would have to go back and double check that, but you've seen screenshots of people entering the baseball diamond, so there has to be something, and there better be a freaking baseball bat.
All right. Austin, just something I think people are going to make fun of you in the comment section for this, but one plays baseball in a stadium. The diamond is the thing inside the stadium.
I don't know about sports ball that well. Which one is the one where you hit the ball with the bat into a goal? Is that baseball?
Yeah, that's the point is to hit the ball and then chase after it and keep hitting it until you've knocked it into the center field net. All right, so to sum up that perfectly reasonable speculation, we think there's going to be some direct Boston Red Sox references in Fallout 4. All right, so in the perfectly reasonable category comes Drake Steele on Twitter, @DrakeSteele. You and the Brotherhood of Steel destroy half of Boston to build your own settlement there. So now, I don't think they're really going to do this in the game, but I do think it's a terrific concept for a rival franchise to do. So I've been waiting for the Battlefield franchise to address a pre-apocalyptic setting and then have a live moment within the game where like a nuclear war happens, and because Battlefield is all about destructible environments, you'll be able to actively watch the world around you get destroyed over the course of a few levels, and then play in a post-apocalyptic world that you've seen happen in real time using the destructible environments in Fallout's engine. In Battlefield's engine.
While your computer melts before your very eyes as the bombs drop.
Hey, we're in the next generation now. They can do this. They can render an entire city and then destroy it. And, at the end of every Battlefield match, you end up looking like a level in Fallout anyway. So, why not just make that part of the story where you start out in this pristine, nice world, and then, you call in the nuclear strikes yourself, blow up the city, and then walk through what you did, and the designers rub your nose in it, and here, look what you did.
We've been trying to figure out for a while, what the role of vertibirds are in Fallout 4, and it's, basically we just speculate. We've seen the main character shoot his minigun from there, and while I don't think that there's gonna be any destroying of cities, I think it would be pretty sweet if you could arrange in some way to do like mini nuke carpet bombing. Obviously at great expense, because mini nukes are not easy to find by any means. But that's kind of something that I think could reasonably happen.
Yes, so that's a little bit of Call of Duty with the AC-130 gunship flying around, letting you blast people on the ground. So I think that's actually a perfectly reasonable speculation you've made there yourself.
I am so smart.
Okay, now we have a genuinely irresponsible speculation. I'd like to close on this. Vincent Thadjek. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. At Vincent Thadjek with a 1 instead of an I and a 3 instead of an E. How about Liberty Prime comes back in Transforming 4, turns into a blue flaming Corvega?
A Corvega of all the cars.
So yeah, I think the Optimus Prime Fallout crossover is definitely happening. We'll probably see Saturday morning cartoons with it. You'll be able to buy a little Liberty Prime that folds up into a car, and you can, play with it on... Actually, I'm jabbering there. Not funny. All right, so I think that's definitely going to happen. There's going to be Saturday morning cartoons. There'll be action figures. 100% this is going in the game. Austin?
I want there to be... This is kind of spinning off of their irresponsible speculation. I want you to be able to find, like, parts of Liberty Prime that, like, blasted off from the strike that the Enclave did on it. Like... I know that officially that the Brotherhood reacquired the head. Okay, let me get to the point. I think it'd be awesome if you could build yourself a Liberty Prime like suit of power armor where you just put his head on your shoulders and you just walk around and be like, death to communism, or death is a preferable alternative to communism, and then blast someone with your laser beams. That's what I want out of it.
All right, and on that, thanks for tuning in to this week's episode of GNN. Next week we'll be back. We'll be talking about Zardoz on artsy smartsy stuff. We'll have a little more on the Mad Max video game. We will also return with Ask a Lore Nut. Austin.
Yes, shoot a tweet at me or Charles, and we will, with your questions about Fallout lore that may not be big enough for a storyteller episode, and Charles and I will do a little bit of digging or dig just into our brains because we have a lot of stuff up there, and we will talk out of our very smart butts about all the various questions that you have about the Fallout universe.
And don't forget to tune in to GNN every week for a new episode. We have new episodes of The Storyteller on Fridays, along with new episodes of Hidden History. And don't forget, it's school time again, so we'll have new episodes of Dova Kid, the Littlest Dragonborn, every weekday after school.